Bridging. Generation gaps, socioeconomic gaps, gender gaps, cultural gaps. Bridging gaps that cause confusion, division, and chaos in today's society. And now, let's join our moderator, host, and guest for another provocative episode of Bridging.
Hello and welcome to Bridging. And we're here to help, along with our special guests, Victor and Tammy, to bring you information that will help enlighten you as it pertains to some of those issues that cause chaos, confusion in our society. For this particular episode of Bridging, today we'll be talking about the family structure and the socioeconomic dynamics within that structure. And so, Dr. Mel, again, we want to welcome our guests and talk about, we're going to talk about a little money today.
Talk about that money.
In the family. Yeah. So, for our guests, we want to open up this episode and ask, growing up, who pretty much managed the money within your household? Who was the shot caller as far as the money was concerned?
It depends. With my family, my dad was pretty much, he brought it home. You know, just an old school way. You bring it home, and then he gave it to my mom to distribute it, whatever she saw fit. But let me put this little pin right there too. It depends on some things, because sometimes my mom would, kind of rob Peter to pay Paul type of stuff. And so it was still going back to, like we talked about in the last episode, the communication. My dad gave it to you for one reason, but don't take the liberty to say, oh, yeah, we can do this. And so it just depends on the situation. Let me say that.
Okay. Tammy?
Well, growing up, I saw my grandfather take care of basically everything, down to sitting with him at night, counting down the money from today's work. Every night he'd just balance the books. My grandmother she took care of everything else, the house, everything else. So in my own life, though, each of us kind of had our own thing going. And I don't suggest that, but he made his and took care of the bills, and I made mine, and I knew what I was going to pay out of mine, but we didn't join finances.
You didn't know what the household budget was, because you took care of this part and he took care of that part, but you never brought them together.
Right.
Okay.
There was no unity in the economics of finances. There was no unity. And again, that's not something that I would suggest to anybody, getting married and bringing a family together. But it may work for some people.
Well, we've been married for 21 years, and we started out traditionally, where my husband, we both made money, and I made more, but that was not a problem at all. He was not intimidated. I was not overbearing, but he took care of the bills and the finances. But he was not wise in taking care of the bill and finances, but he thought that was his role. When we talked about roles with husbands and wives, so his role was to take care of the finances. My role was to take care of the what? The home and the house.
Children.
Well, I am not very domesticated, y'all. So we were struggling. We were frustrated because he knows how to cook better than I do. He knows how to clean better than I do. But I can make $5 into $500. So we had to sit down at the table. We brought it to the table. We had to sit down and discuss what are our strengths. So I am the elder in the finances, and he's the elder in other ways. So we had to start working within our strengths to make it work. But we had to have a conversation. That communication had to come up, or we would have been skinny because I couldn't eat, and homeless. And that wasn't going to work. How does it work within your home?
Well, within in my household, my wife makes considerably more money than I do, and it's been that way for a while. We know of couples that where that's a tremendous problem, and for my growing up, in my childhood, my mother pretty much was the sole provider, and so I don't know. I think that it kind of may have impacted me adversely as it relates to my relationship, because I don't have a problem with my wife. She's a corporate woman, and she makes again a substantial amount of money compared to myself. But it's a problem with some men. I do know that.
And I think the problem comes about when, if the person who makes the most money, even if it's the man who makes the most money, if they're beating their chest about it, I make the most money, I get to make the decisions, I say when we go on vacation. But if someone's not feeling in control, then they come together, like I made the most, your wife makes the most. If you come together and have unity within that, it doesn't matter who makes the most, because all of that money is coming to the house. We benefit from this money. So even now, for the last 2 years, I have not worked outside the home. So now my husband, the roles have flipped. He makes the most money. And we still have never had a conversation of, this is my money and this is your money. We've never run our household that way.
Okay. I'm about to say, I think it's important that we debunk the expectations, the quote unquote traditional roles, because like you said earlier, you saying that you made more money, or he was better at doing some of the household things than you were. And I think it's important that we know ourselves and know what our strengths are. And I think that's a really big thing, because at the end of the day, when you are married, and I'm getting married, and I think this is something that I have communicated to my fiance, that we're becoming one.
Right.
It ain't yours, it ain't mine. Let's put it in the pot. Let's divvy it up how we gonna divvy it up.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, it's our money to, pull from, to have emergency fund, to take care of bills, to take care of whatever else needs to be taken care of. And so it's not so much of I'm feeling less of a man because I know how to cook better than you.
Right.
I was just
because
raised,
we're one. We have to eat.
Right.
We have to eat.
We both have to eat. Exactly right.
And Dr. Mel, I'd just like to chime in on that. For the men out there, I'm a real man now. I want to let you know that.
Don't mistake it.
Yeah, let's not get it twisted, okay? However, again, based on the way I grew up, and my mother taught me to manage money, to live within my means, and to take care of myself, be able to wash. And so when I got with my wife, I was very substantial, had my own house, had the cars and all of that. And so when we came together, we really were able just to build upon what foundation I had already established. So when I, was able to kind of step back financially, and then she kind of took the lead, it was no problem, because we had devised a budget for the household, and we just maintained that. And so, again, just understanding the roles, and, though she's the quote unquote breadwinner, I'm the shot caller. I just want to let everybody out there know that. I'm Dr. Mel, I'm running it. So,
I think the issue becomes when we have that, what we make makes us. Like, it makes us, when you make a certain amount, it puts you in this status. I think that's what has brought this gap to the forefront even the more. Because again, if someone makes, I've seen people, I know people right now, where the husband has never made more than $10 an hour his whole life. He's 70 plus years old. They have more today than some people that have made six figures all of their lives. Right. And they have even more because they are both retired and have retired 20 years ago.
And some of that is attributed to budgeting
and coming together, unity.
Coming together in unity. We have to take a break, so when we come back, we're going to talk about budgeting as a family and how much do you teach your children about finances, because one day you were going to be someone's husband, and if you weren't taught finances, where do you get that from? So we will be right back talking about budgeting and finances.
The book Mental Kidnapping by Stephen Treadwell will help strengthen you spiritually with evidence from the Word of God. Everything we do begins with a thought. Think twice before you speak once, casting down imaginations and every high thing that is exalted against the knowledge of God. Let the real you shine through. Get encouraged, blessed, and motivated. Go to lulu.com or call 844-212-0689 to order your copy of Mental Kidnapping.
I got hit by a car, knocked up 8 feet in the air, landed on the windshield, died twice on the way to the hospital. So I was in a coma for 15 days. I came out the coma, found I was paralyzed. I never thought of myself being a writer. Every paper I wrote in college was, it was about, the Word of God. Right. Amen. And so that's why I live. I live, if you want to find me, I'll be in the secret places. Well, mental kidnapping is anything that takes you away from the the will of God.
Mental Kidnapping by Stephen Treadwell takes you behind the bars of the human mind. Stephen Treadwell, a talented writer, a must-read for everybody. Get your copy today at lulu.com.
We were talking about finances and socioeconomics. We talked about making money in the house and the man or the woman who controls that, or is there a control person over that? I wanted to know, what do we teach our children about finances? Because one day our children will grow up and be adults and have to do this on their own. I personally wasn't taught anything about finances. I knew how to make money. Even as a teenager, I had a job. I was an entrepreneur as a young person. I knew how to make money, but no one told me or taught me how to budget or how to save. What is savings? You know, I used to spend my whole check at Charlotte Russe. Charlotte Russe was like that good store. Hey, pretty close. So I used to spend my whole check on Charlotte Russe, but no one told me about this. So where do we start the conversation with our kids? And have you started that conversation? And what do you tell them?
For me, I would have to do a do-over. But if I had to go back, I would have, from the very minute where they could ask, can I have, I would have said, can you buy? And that would have meant that I would have been giving, this is your dollar, and so if you want this, and if your dollars can buy this, then you can have it. And then I would have also made sure that every time I sat down to pay a bill, that they would have been right there next to me to see where my dollars was going and how they contributed to my dollars going out the door. Okay, you left your light on all night. You left your TV on. And those kind of things. So I think the sooner the better, and I think as soon as they can ask, then they should be able to buy. And if they cannot, then this is not for you. I would have been a bit tougher.
Okay, quick question. Did you get allowance growing up?
No.
No allowance. Did you get allowance?
I didn't.
Did you give allowance to your child?
I started late.
Okay. Did you give or get allowance?
I received allowance, but much like what Tammy was mentioning, I learned early how to budget money. And I would, my mother would sit down and say, hey, here's the utility bill, here's the rent, and so here's where my money is going. And my allowance went to things that I wanted to purchase. Okay. And so, yeah, I learned early on.
We have 2 children, as you know, if you've been watching Bridging, I talk about my kids. We never gave them allowance, not one day, because I felt like their reasonable service was to clean their room. Their reasonable service was to help out with the dishes. Their reasonable service is to sweep the kitchen floor. So we did not give them allowance, but they were able to earn money by going above and beyond their reasonable service. So if my husband was outside raking leaves, my son might go out there and say, Dad, you need some help? You want me to help you rake leaves? That to me was going above and beyond. So I would see that and say, oh, I noticed you went outside and helped Daddy. Here's $5 for that. So they started looking for ways to earn money, which also made them want to be early entrepreneurs. They wanted to find ways to make money.
Right.
I want to pay, because where I come from, that young man would not have been inside and had an opportunity to ask to come outside. He would have already been outside.
Okay.
There. That's just from the back, just that day and time. So even that is a difference in how the kids are able to do now versus then.
Right. And that's what I was about to say. My dad is a pastor.
You see me go when you go.
Right. He's a church musician as well. And so he saw that I had an interest in music, and so he said, Vic, go play the drum. And so he saw that I was interested in drum, and he asked the church to, pay me like $25. And so he opened up a savings account under his name, and he said, every week that I played the drums for the church, he deposited $25 check.
So you earned some money.
And I earned the money, and he showed me that, hey, you got to put the work in, play the drums, sit down, be faithful, come to rehearsal, you're coming with me. And in a sense, he taught me how to work, and then he taught me how to put it in an account, or what an account was, and then he also taught me how to balance a checkbook. He's like, if you swipe this card, because I had a card, he said, if you swipe this card and it declined, that means you didn't have money. You didn't do a good job of managing your money. You just been swiping, you were being irresponsible. And so that's the way that he kind of introduced finances to me. I worked for it. He put it up under his name so he could kind of monitor it as well.
That's good.
He didn't just let me freelance and just go out there and just, open up a credit card line now. now that I'm older, that would have been completely not a smart move because I would have been swiping, and eventually he would have to pay it back. But
So do you live on your own now?
no, I still live with my
You
dad.
still live at home. How old do you think a child should be before they move out? Just give me a number. Just a number. And we'll talk about how old they should be in your perception.
You sure you want the answer?
Yes, just a number. How old do you think they should
Don't
be?
hurt me.
When they're getting ready to get married.
Okay, when they get ready to get married,
I'll just throw a number out, 25.
25. I think when they get ready to get married as well. How old do you think?
When they get ready to get married.
That is so unusual, you guys. Okay, so I went out on the street and I asked people, how old do you think your child should be when they leave the house? And we got an array of answers, but here's a few right now. I have teenage children, and so do a lot of my friends. So the question around the table is, how old should your child be when they move out?
Well, it varies. It depends on the individual. For me, it was 18, but that was because I wanted to be an adult. I wanted to be on my own, running my own life.
Excuse me, sir. I have children. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I have children, and they're teenagers. How old should your child be when they finally move out?
Well, I don't know the definite answer, but as for me, it was 19. And the reason was at that particular time, I wanted my independence. And plus I had a job that was enable me to pay my rent and take care of myself the way my parents had done it. Now I could do it for myself.
I say 19 years old.
Why 19?
Why 19 is because at 18, they just getting out of school. At 18, and they not developing yet. Their mind not set right yet.
Well, I think it depends on the parents, and I think it depends on when the child is financially ready.
A lot of people not showing them how to do finance. They'll go get their hair done before they go pay their rent.
I guess maybe if they're in college, it'll probably take them some time. Others leave earlier. It all depends.
Hey, as long as you're in my house, then you're governed by my rule. If you want to be grown, then you get out and you get on your own.
I'm Dr. Mel, and I've been out here asking people, how old should your child be when they leave the house? I have a 19-year-old and a 13-year-old. So you guys, I have some decisions to make. Okay, so out on the street, people said 19. People said when they think that the child is financially ready. We here in the studio, 3 of us said when they get married. So even in that, is there preparation for them leaving the house when they decide to get married with their finances? What should they know when leaving the house?
Everything. Everything. And because I think that's one of the reasons that they should be able to stay. And it doesn't mean that they have to, but I think that option should be there. And for sure that we as adults should be equipping them, that they should be able to see us doing what we're saying, what we're asking them to do when they go out and be somebody's husband, somebody's wife. But I think we send them out far too soon, and that we expect more than we should from them sending them out there that soon. So
I know some people who are hard and fast. You should be 18 when they leave. Like when their child is 16 and 17, they're like, when you're 18, you got to get out my house. You're out of here.
Dr. Mel, I've had some young men that are homeless due to this thing, due to this people saying that he's a man, he's 18, he should be out. There are young men out there today that are homeless because of this.
I think we do our children, our young men, even our young women a disservice when we put a number on it. As we heard some of the viewers or some of the people on the street, it boils down to maturity. How mature are they? Can they handle bills? Can they handle peer pressure? Can they make good choices when they go out there? Because he said if he had the card, he would just be swiping, and he'd be put out of his little apartment, because he's of age, but not of maturity.
Right.
Where do you stand on this?
Well, I still believe 25 is sufficient amount of time, because while you're under my roof, I will hopefully be training my children to be prepared by age 25. And then what if they never get married? So they'd be living with me forever. We ain't having that. Okay, and as well as, you know, once you hopefully graduate high school and either pursue the military or post-secondary education, what have you, you have at some point in time kind of get out, and the bird needs to kind of leave the nest and go on their own. And so I will hopefully have prepared my child by age 25, because, you know, you're gonna have to eventually get your own. You understand with me, forever. Yeah.
My dad has said that if you can manage a bill in this house, then it can kind of show you if you're managing your money. Because I just received my very first job teaching in the school system, and he's saying, well, take a light bill, or take over your car note, or take over their insurance, or do both, and see if you can manage that. If you can manage that, then add on something else. I'll give you the 25. You can stay here rent free. He said you can rack your money up, because I want to set you up that when you get out, that you don't start in the struggle. That you start better than I was, you know, and that you start on the upper end instead of just trying to fight your way, you know, through life, through jobs, and through finances.
Right. And I'd like to ask, have you ever eaten a meal and gone back for seconds?
Yes, sir.
Or thirds?
Yes, sir.
See, he can take a bill, or two, or three. That's right.
Yes, sir.
And it's funny how men think about it. You know, you put that number 25. I bet if I ask my husband, in his mind, because we haven't talked about this, y'all, he's probably going to have that number 25 too. Like, they got to go at 25. But me and you were saying until they're married with no definite number. So that's something I'm definitely going to have to think about.
I go back to what you said. Now, if it gets to the point where I see marriage is not your thing, then a home needs to be your thing.
Yeah, put your money into that.
Needs to be your thing. But if I think that your journey is to build and have a family, then I want you to stay until you find that wife, because I have a son, or if I had a daughter, I definitely would want my daughter to stay until she found that husband, because the streets are waiting for our kids. Like, that's a trickery of the enemy. The streets are waiting for our unprepared youth.
So is it okay for a girl to stay home if she never gets married?
I don't have a girl, but if seeing the young girls and the friends that I have with young girls today, she probably would have to go to at a certain age, because they're just different. I mean, really, they girls are just, people are different. So it just depends on how you flowed in the house.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about, still sticking with finances. The premise has been, go to school, get a good job, stay on that job for 30, 40 years, and then retire and get a percentage of that income. How many times have you heard that? Forever.
Yeah, that's like an old mantra. Yeah,
Is that what you subscribe to? Is that what we're telling our children today? Because you're 22. Do you plan on staying at that school for 40 years?
No, ma'am.
Absolutely not. See, the millennials, they're like, I'm not here for 40 years. Exactly. I'm not here for that.
No, ma'am. And again, I know I keep bringing up my dad, but my dad has instilled a lot of stuff inside of me. He's taught me that, you know, we need at least 8 streams of income. And so I'm right now in the planning stages of trying to figure out what in the world can I do other than teaching, other than music. What can I do to bring in 8 streams of income? Because again, I love teaching children, but I don't see myself personally on, you know, that job for 30, 35, you know, to build up that retirement. And I really don't like to be secluded and to be boxed in. And I know a lot of people in my generation feels that way. We like to be entrepreneurs because I like to wake up when I want to. I don't like waking up at 6 o'clock and being at a school to 3 o'clock and then doing it all over again for 5 days a week and only having a 30-minute weekend.
Right.
And so
when your dad said 8 streams of income, let me tell you this, that is not a number he just came up with. Research shows that millionaires on average have 8 streams of income. So that's where you got that from. Yes, and the other thing I want to tell you, as an entrepreneur, you will wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and work. You actually work harder as an entrepreneur than you do for someone. Right. Like, I've been doing this for 2 years from my home. I work from my home for me. And there's a few times I've looked for a job and said, you know, I just want to do this thing from 9 to 5 and be done. But then I do get to call my own shots.
Right.
I think, I want to just, you made me think about something. what are we working for?
Yes.
I think that it's so important because it's so different from back in the day. We worked so that we have a place to live and food and something to wear. Well, now we have closets, me included, but I'm working on I just really want 5 pair of pants and about 10 shirts and a few pair of shoes. We are working our lives away for stuff.
For your pleasures.
Right, that brings no real peace.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Consistently, and we're losing our generation. Going back to our previous shows, this is causing us to lose the family structure. This is causing us to want our children to be out by age 18 so that we can buy more stuff, that we can fill that room up with some more stuff that we want them out of. So I think when we talk about socioeconomics, we also have to think about what are we working for, and what do we see as valuable?
What are we placing our value on?
Right. And what are we losing to get those things?
Right.
Like,
because people are working 2 and 3 jobs. If you are working 2 and 3 jobs, there's very little time to sit at the table and have dinner. There's very little time to have conversations with your children. So we are losing our children to stuff.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. When you find, I've heard the phrase that, when you find your purpose, when you find your passion, you'll never work a day of your life. And I feel like you get 2 and 3 jobs, you still not bringing in the same amount of money with this 2 or 3 jobs. You're more tired, you're more cranky, you're more, bound, to a lot of negative stuff. Versus you take time to find your purpose and your passion. I think that's a big thing I preach to my children at school. Take time now. You may not be thinking about it right now, but take time and think about what am I on this earth for? Why am I working? Why am I here? And when you discover that, I mean, you can save yourself 40 years and just going and running that road and running that race that you know within you, that you were born and you were destined for.
So we have a few minutes left, and we always want to acknowledge that we talked about the problems, we talked about some of the dysfunctions, but how do we bridge that gap? And I think you summed it up quite nicely. To find out your purpose and your passion, and the only way we can find our purpose and our passion is through Christ. We have to spend time with God. We have to spend time with the Creator to say, what did you create me to do? And then listen for that. And then run with it.
Absolutely.
I would add not make money your God.
Yeah.
Or your priority, like you said, or as valuable as we make it. Because some of the things we make it to buy, we don't need.
And that's, you all have really touched on like values, as you said, just keeping in mind that, society puts indirect pressure on us to uphold certain images, or they mislead us to think that certain things will bring joy, and which what we've discussed, a lot of what we've discussed is things that money can't buy. Right. Being with family, people who care about you, people who are going to instill, good values that will bring you peace, will help you fill that void and that purpose in life. So that's key.